What's up? Welcome back to the Siris King Show. In this episode, I'm gonna keep it short. Somebody asked me a question about African secret societies, if they exist, because I made a comment. And this is a very hard to answer question because when somebody listen, I don't know the exact timeline, right? I mean, the human race is like 3 million years old. It could, maybe a little older, right? Depends what you consider human. I don't really know when other races came in. And I say other races. I'm not talking about genetically because genetically there's no real such thing. Race is a social construct. I have to be a grown up and say that because I feel like on the internet we just get used to being stupid and shit. So I have to kind of say race is a social construct. But what you guys describe, right? 3 million years ago, humans came in. So I'm gonna probably get because the Aborigine and the indigenous, like let's say, Melanesians from the Pacific Ocean, Pacific islands, like Vanuatu, New Guinea, Fiji, New Caledonia, and then you go into indigenous people in Thailand, the Philippines, Malaysia, India. So I'm gonna say black or black-looking people, right? Had the earth for a while. I'm gonna guess the first manifestation of a race is probably what you call the East Asian race. So that's why even when you do Thailand and the places of Southeast Asia, they were still kind of black looking at first. And maybe, because there was also other groups of humanoids. Like, I know I'm pronouncing on Devonotians, I think, and Neanderthals as well. So when a lot of people mixed in with those people, you start to get other races as well. So remember, they left Neanderthals and Devonotians, and I could be pronouncing Devonotians wrong. They left Africa a while, right? They left Africa before. The first group to leave Africa was the Austronesian people, Aborigine, indigenous Indians, indigenous Malaysians, Melanesians, them people, right? So I'm going to say probably Indians, right? So, okay, let's probably say Indians manifested first from those more African-looking people, and then East Asians probably came after that. You're talking about probably like 50,000 years ago, maybe less. Maybe 30,000 years ago, after 3 million. If you care about that type of politics. So, 3 million, 60,000 is not even 10% 3 million. So just put that in context, right? When you talk about Africa and secret societies, like you need to put that in context. So when you're that old and you're that diverse, think about it. If you went to Australia, what's the indigenous Australians? What population does Australia produce? Aborigine, one type. You go to Europe, Western Europe, or Eastern Europe too, but let's say Western Europe, because Eastern Europe's gonna fuck me up because some of them look East Asian, right? So Western Europe, what population does that produce? One, right? I don't like to say Nordic, but what people call Caucasian. Caucasian is technically a culture from the Caucasus Mountains. And some people in the Caucasus Mountains are Asiatic, right? But whatever. I know sometimes people like to make shit nice and easy, right? So Western Europe won, Aborigine, Australia won, right? Asia is the biggest continent. Asia is the biggest continent by far. So it should produce the most, right? But it produces what you call the East Asian looking people, Indians, East Indians, right? 2. It does produce white people, what you call Caucasians, 3. I think I'm missing somebody. Let me just add somebody else. I don't know. I thought I'm missing something. Let's say 4, because the Middle Eastern people are technically Caucasian, but I said that with white people, right? So 3 to 4. So let's just say Asia's 3 to 4. I feel like I'm missing somebody, right? South America, naturally 1. Native Americans, right? North America, naturally 1. So now North America, South America is 1-1. Australia is 1. Asia is the biggest competition. It's 3 to 4. We're talking about genetics now, not even just looks. And then Europe is 1, right? So then when you go to Africa, it gets rough. Because North African is the indigenous Caucasians of the African continent. Just saying. It's 1. The West African Negroid type, that's going to be, that's West, Bantus in Central Africa and South Africa, right? So that's 2. But then the Pygmies and Bushmen look black, but they consider a different mutation. So that goes from 2 to 4, right? And then the East African, the Nilotic peoples, Ethiopian, Somalians, that's 5. Before you start saying what looks genetically, you put the East Asian, I keep saying East Asian, Jesus Christ, East African and West African. There's more genetic diversity between them than whites and Asians. So that's definitely different groups. They look black, but it's definitely different groups. So you have so I'm gonna do it again. East African, the West African, the Bushman in South Africa, that's 3. The Pygmies in Congo, that's 4. The North Africans are indigenous whites of Africa, that's 5. Once you go to Madagascar, which is still considered Africa, you even have populations related to East Asians, as well as populations related to Aborigines, right? So yes, you have Austronesian people in Madagascar. So that goes from, and you have Indians in Madagascar. So that goes from 5 to 8. 8. The few East Asian looking people in Madagascar, let me leave them alone. Let's say 7. The Indians in Madagascar, the Austronesian people in Madagascar, the Malgasis, I think they call them Malgasis, that's 2. The whites in North Africa, that's 3. The Negroid that's in West Africa, Central Africa, and South Africa, that's 4. The Bushman in Southern Africa, 5. The oldest man on earth. And then 6, the Pygmies, right? And then the East African, 7. So 7 for Africa, 3 to 4 for Asia, where Asia's bigger. Europe, North America, South America have 1 apiece. Do you see the difference in genetic diversity? And in African ATR, in that ATR culture, your body is you. We don't separate the body and spirit the same way. Yeah, one fades and one doesn't fade as easily, but they're connected. Your body is part of your story, who you are. It's directly tied to your ancestors, directly tied to the land you come from. We don't do that stuff like the younger Greeks and Indians and the Jews did. Just saying, this is African business, right? Now, when you talk about secret societies, even within those 7 to 8 groups, those 7 to 8 groups might look, well, the North Africans don't, but most of them look black or black looking. But when we say different genetics, that's a different energy. And then some of them have hybrid energies, right? So the Bantu people have pygmy in them. We all do, but they have higher pygmy than the West African. The South Africans, the Zulus in them, some of them have more Koshan in them, or San people in them, right? Bushmen, right? Mixed with, I was going to say Congolese, but Bantu people, right? And the Bantu people, naturally, some of them started in Cameroon, so there's ties to them and some parts of Nigeria. So they obviously have West African, but they turned into something else. So you have these 7 to 8 groups. And then sometimes hybrids, right? You might have the Igbos that in West Africa, but sometimes they have some East African blood. You get that mix, right? You got people in Kenya, Rwanda, to Tanzania. You have them who, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. I know I'm missing somebody with it. But they're Bantus, but they mix with East African, right? So you got these hybrids going on, right? And all of them have a different spirituality. The North African systems or North African groups are relevant to the world. So to the world, North Africa was a secret occult center for a long time. From Egypt, Morocco, for a long time. Even when that gets transferred, when you see the French were factors because they controlled that, North Africa, right? So within all 6, 7 groups, and then, let's be honest, then we got the ones from the slave trade, and you got some dudes in the Americas knocking on doors, knocking on the West African doors in terms of relevance for spirituality, right? Brazil, Cuba, Haiti, shit, Haiti could bang anybody in West Africa, right? So then you got that. Then you got in the East Africa, you got some people who may not even look black anymore, or they just have, like the Ethiopians, they remember certain things about Judaism that Ashkenazi Jews don't remember, right? Ethiopia is one of the oldest Christianity, and Muhammad had to go to Ethiopia to get help from Medinians, right? So in the other slave trade, you got the same that you have in West Africa, but a little different, right? But same thing, meaning the East Africa expanded into Arabia, West Africa expanded into the Americas. And then you forgot the forgotten people, the indigenous people of India, Malaysia, Thailand, blah, blah, blah. And then even extends to, even when they don't look black, some people might hold the mantle, right? So this is like, so if you go by African standards, when our power comes from our DNA, our power comes from, which is hooked to the ancestors, our power comes from the land you come from, right? Or land you're connected to. And some people have a hodgepodge mixtures of land now that they come from. You create different secret societies that may not be centralized the same, but it's also extreme. Meaning if you know, you know, you don't, you don't. So when people ask if this African secret societies, I think they're more talking about, because the East Africans did this better than the West Africans. The West Africans got very much into ancestral stuff, and they got very much into humanizing their spirits, where the Bantu people, they're always shamans first. Our shit is animals and the dead, and definitely land. That's how Bantu people get down first. East Africans and North Africans probably have the best discipline. And I'm going to say the East more, because North Africa was more relevant to the outside world. They had no power spiritually within the African continent like that, right? East Africans kind of had the thing where they can mix Islam and mix Judaism and mix sometimes even Christianity. They can mix it all, and then at the same time, heavy ancestral stuff, but very hidden. Them guys, they don't talk. And you get East Africans who have to go to West Africa to get some ATR shit. Like if you in East Africa, especially Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, the Rajati, them guys, like the ones that's more Bantu, they might have a little, their politics might be kind of closer to Congo, West Africa, or South Africa. But the Ethiopians, Somalians, them, nah, you don't know, you don't know. And then their shit is hidden within the Abrahamic structure, too. So you ain't got, if you don't know, you don't know. So African secret societies tend to be more hidden than white secret societies, by far. So hidden that it's hard to even talk about it, because there's a lot of things about reality that people just don't understand. And when you look at it, you look at it kind of how you train to look at it, you don't see it. But even if we just keep it to what you know, because I think when people are asking it, they talk more about West African groups, ancestral gatekeepers. They get more into like, should white people get initiated in ATRs, like that type of shit. You know what I mean? Like they get more into that. That's not a conversation for somebody truly. Okay, what I'm about to say this, understand. Some people are initiated, right? You're initiated in ancestor cults. Yes. When you go on a higher level within Africa, they can separate it. You have ancestral cults, and you have cults that tap into cosmic forces, which are more universal. But you can't just be like, I don't know who I am. I don't want to be black. I don't want to be African. Like, you know how you guys be talking about, I'm not black, I'm Native American. Shit like that. When you start talking about like that, you're not. Like, straight up, just walk away. They fuck away from even, because I'm not going to lie to you, even when people from the West African groups and then their counterparts in America talk about white people getting initiated in ATRs, that whole thing is such a dumb conversation at the top level, because the African cults that's supposed to initiate white people is East African and North African cults, right? White people have this thing with Islam, so they usually don't do that. North Africa and in East Africa, white people related to them. We do ancestrals, right? It's not the job of the West Africans or their counterparts in this border to initiate them. Doesn't mean they can't. Like I said, everybody runs their own house. But that's the real reason why, not the other shit. The other shit is people who just do the ancestral leg guessing. And they get mad they won. You know what I mean? Because the way they do it in Africa and the counterparts, whether it's the Americas, Arabia, or the adjacent people in Malaysia, guys, Melanesia, all them people, if you don't know, you don't know. You can hear somebody talk real quick and know if they don't know. You could just hit them, right? You could just hit them in seconds, right? They don't, they've been to one part of West Africa only. Like I said, you've been to Congo only once, twice. Even if you've been there, even if you go there to move, you ain't plugged in like that. I can tell you that shit. You can. How much people live in a place? There's Americans living in Mexico. Are they plugged in? Can they go outside their little regions and really go to Mexico, like certain parts? No, they can't. And when you deal with this shit, it either goes to the rural areas or goes to upper levels of elites, upper level. And they don't talk like that. So there's most certainly African secret societies. Unfortunately, when all of us, myself included, you ain't born in them shits like that. A top level. I'm not talking about somebody just doing ancestral shit who charging $50,000 for initiation. I'm not talking about them, because first off, any initiate would tell you, who's real initiate would tell you, when you put in those prices for your work, initiation level, you weaken the energy of the whole system. Nobody's saying would charge that if they care. If it's a business, they would. And again, if it's a business, what is it? Usually ancestral. See, you're initiate to people who are totally disconnected, who don't know nothing. Of course. But on the top level, nah, you don't do that. Everybody knows that. And if you don't know, go to a Western occultist and ask them. Ask your daddies, right? Because unfortunately, for many people, that's where you have to go. You ain't born connected to it or know somebody in that, it don't work like that. You just don't. But are they secrets? There's most certainly African secret societies. There's African secret societies in Americas. And I would admit, you don't get as much in America itself. Or you start going South Mexico, you see them, for sure. I'm not saying they don't exist in America, but it's different. And if they exist in America, it's like, it's going to have the setup that East Africa has. You might get some of them in D.C. and Maryland. I will give you that. One like some random dude in South Carolina, and you get that a little bit. Because most people they don't understand how politics and spirituality merge into one. So when you're doing one or the other, you're kind of locked from the game because you got to blend both of them together. And when you blend both of them together, a story comes to your mind and a way of moving comes to your mind. And when you move a certain way and somebody else is moving that way, they open up the door for you. When you're saying stupid shit, you know what I mean? Like, you gatekeeping, like, dude, white people ain't connected the way niggas in West Africa. So they shouldn't be getting, like, I don't tell anybody they shouldn't get initiated, and everyone runs their house a certain way, right? If you got your house, you can do the fuck you want to do. There might be consequences, but you can do whatever you want to do. So it's a dumb conversation. It's a conversation that's based on immaturity, to be honest. You know what I mean? Especially because there's obviously white people in ATRs. That's not going to change. And you just care more about YouTube clicks, to be honest. And you say no. Are you kidding me? You make an anti-voodoo video now, especially if you're ready in the cultist, you're not really in the black algorithm. The first people come at you is other white people who do voodoo. So this is the way it is. You hear them saying New Orleans, they don't tell you there's voodoo lineages in Chicago. There's one that went back to France. What are you talking about? That shit is old. Like, there's been doing that for long. And again, they're limited because they're not really related to that. They're from the East Africans and North Africans. That's where they're from. That's who should be initiating them. But that's a story for another time. Siris King. Till next time. Peace.